Hello, everybody. Welcome to your math lesson for today. I wanted to make sure we keep trudging on even though I'm not there. So yesterday we looked at finding least common multiples, or LCMs. Most of you guys were doing pretty well with that. Even if you had to list out the multiples, that was okay, as long as you used that list then to help you find that least common multiple. So I told you yesterday that LCM was the same as something called LCD. And that is what we're going to be looking at today. So LC still stands for least common, but D now stands for denominators. Okay, so we're slowly working our way into adding and subtracting fractions. The problem is these fractions do not have common denominators. So in order to add and subtract them, you have to find a least common denominator in order to successfully add them. So what we're going to work on today is finding that least common denominator and then writing equivalent fractions to go along with it. So if you take a look at the screen in front of you, there's 3 easy steps to finding an LCD and writing equivalent fractions. Now remember, equivalent, we've talked about this before. Equivalent just means equal. Okay, if you need to make a note of that so you remember, that's fine. We're just making fractions that are equal to each other. All right, so if you look on the page here, step 1 says first thing you need to do is identify those denominators. Remember, the denominators are the numbers on the bottom of the fractions. So in this case, we're looking at 2/9 and 3/6. So the denominators are 9 and 6. Step 2 is using the least common multiple to figure out what that LCD or least common denominator is. Now, they have it set up with this letter M, and they list multiples that way. It's a cute little thing, but the way we were doing it yesterday with just listing works perfectly fine. So here's the denominator, and then up here, they list all of the multiples for 9. Here's 6, the other denominator, and they list the multiples of 6. And then they went through and circled what that least common multiple is, which is 18. So not only is that the LCM, but that's now also considered the LCD, or the least common denominator. So then we get on to step 3, and this is the new part for today. Once we found those LCMs, now we need to write equivalent fractions using that as the denominator. So here you see our original fractions are listed, 2/9 and 3/6. And then off to the side, they have what will be the equivalent fractions using that least common denominator for the bottom number of our fraction. So what you do is you place the 18 on the bottom of both fractions, just like they have here. And then you just ask yourself, okay, well, what do I need to multiply 9 by to make it 18? And the answer is 2. So if you're going to multiply the bottom by 2, then you also have to multiply the top by 2. Because what you do to the bottom, you also have to do to the top. So 2 times 2 right here is how we get our 4 numerator. So 4/18 is the equivalent fraction for 2/9. Then for your second fraction, 3/6, again, we make that denominator 18. What do you have to multiply 6 by to make it 18? Well, that's times 3. So since we multiply the bottom by 3, we multiply the top by 3. And 3 times 3 gives us 9. So 9/18 is the equivalent fraction for 3/6. Okay, and that's as far as we're going to take those today. So step 1, what's the denominator? Step 2, what's the least common multiple of those denominators? And then step 3, write the equivalent fractions. All right, so what we're going to do now is we are going to walk through a couple examples just to make sure we understand what we're doing. And then I'm going to let you try a couple examples on your own, and then we'll come back together and check the answers. So this paper that's on my screen right now, this should be handed out to you from the substitute. And we're just going to walk through these first two problems together. So as you can see, it says finding the common denominator and writing equivalent fractions. So that's the key to what we're doing. So for the first one here, we have 5/6 and 3/4. So it says that we need to find the least common denominator of 6 and 4 because those are our two denominators. So that is your LCD, remember? So if you need to write out the multiples of 6 and 4, you're welcome to do that. So we have 6 and 4. And if we write out those multiples for 6, we have 6, 12, 18, and 24, sorry. And then our multiples of 4, we have our 4, 8, 12, 16. Now, if you notice here, then we do have two numbers that appeared in both of our lists, and they are 12. So that means the LCM and LCD, same thing, is going to be 12. So we're going to put 12 here in this blank. Now the last thing we have to do is use that to write our equivalent fractions. So we're going to go ahead and put 12 in the denominator part of both of those fractions. And then to get the numerator, this is where you have to ask yourself, what you do to the bottom, you do to the top. So what do you do to 6 to make it equal 12? Multiply by 2. So then you also have to multiply the numerator by 2. So 5 times 2 is 10. Good. So the equivalent fraction there is 10/12. Then for your second fraction, again, what do you multiply 4 by to make it 12? 3. So times 3 on the numerator and the denominator. And 3 times 3 is 9. Good. So our actual answers here are that the LCD is 12 and that our equivalent fractions are 10/12 and 9/12. Now remember, if you don't need to write out all of the multiples, that's okay. I don't need to see that work as long as you're getting the right answer. All right, let's go ahead now. I'm going to erase part of this. Make some room. Let's go ahead now and look at number 2 together. Okay, so for number 2, again, we're finding the LCD, and the denominators are 9 and 12. So if you need to list those multiples out, write that down. So 9 times 1 is 9. 9 times 2, we get 18. 9 times 3, 27. 9 times 4, 36. I'm going to stop there because I don't have much room. Multiples of 12. 12 times 1 is 12. 12 times 2 is 24. 12 times 3 is 36. All right, now you should notice then that we do have two numbers that appeared in both lists, and that is 36. So that means our LCD is 36. All right, then for the second part, down here on the fractions, put those denominators in as 30. My thing's not letting me write very well. Try that again. There. Keeps putting a lasso there. All right. No, let me write 36. There we go. 36. So those are our denominators of 36. And now we go through and say, okay, what do we multiply 12 by to make it 36? Well, it's 12 times 3. So then we also multiply the numerator by 3. And 4 times 3 gets us 12. And then for the last one, what times 9 equals 36? Well, that should be 4. So then multiply 2 times 4 and we get 8. So our correct answers there. Shrink this back down. Correct answers there are LCD is 36, and then our fractions are 8/36 and 12/36. Okay, now that we've kind of walked through a couple example problems, I would like you to go ahead and try these last 4 on your paper. And when you're ready, you can come back and double check your answers. So go ahead and pause the video and come back when you're ready. Okay, now that we're back, let's go ahead and go through and you can check your answers with what I'm going to put on the board. All right, so for the first one, we have 6/7 and 1/2. So our LCD, our common denominator for this, is going to be 14. So then 14 will be the denominators down here. And this gets multiplied by 2, as does the 6. So it's going to give you 12/14. Down here it's multiplied by 7. So it gives you 7/14. So our answers are 14 for the LCD, 12/14, and 7/14. All right, for number 4, denominators are 9 and 18. So the LCD is actually 18, which is kind of nice when that happens. So for our equivalent fractions, we put 18s on the bottom. For the first fraction, we have to take 9 times 2 to get 18. So 5 times 2 gets us 10. So 10/18 is the correct answer on that. And for the bottom one, 18 to 18, you're not really going to technically do anything because you're really just multiplying by 1, which does not change anything. So that fraction gets to stay 3/18. Number 5, 6 and 9 are the denominators. So our common denominator for that, and we actually did this yesterday with our LCM, was 18. So 18 for both of our denominators. We need to do 6 times 3 to get 18. So that means 1 times 3. So 3/18 is that equivalent fraction. We need to do 9 times 2 to get 18. So 1 times 2 gets us 2. So that answer is 2/18. And our last one then, number 6. Let's see, her fractions or denominators are 8 and 6. So the LCD for that is actually 24. So we put 24 down for both of those. And 8 times 3 gets us 24. So 3 times 3 is 9. And 6 times 4 is 24. So 5 times 4 is 20 for the correct answers there. Okay, so hopefully you guys did okay on that. We'll continue practicing this. And our next step will then be to add the fractions together as well as start subtracting them. So hopefully you guys don't have any questions. If you do, feel free to let me know. I will be back tomorrow and we can discuss more. All right, you guys have a great day. Bye.